Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. So, I've been asked to discuss a little bit about pictures. Um, it's strange to me because I want to say, no, it's not the third person. Not the third person, but basically, this conversation that came up from more than one person within the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, about pictures and putting, you know, tape over the eyes and, whiting out the eyes and different things. And then also, somebody asked me kind of about like, they heard my video where I was speaking about how the way things is being taught, how it's different. And just kind of asked me some of the differences, some more things that I noticed. So I'm just going to touch on that briefly. And I will say this, um, before, years ago, like I always reiterate, I became a Muslim as a 13, 14-year-old kid, right? And let me say this, I'm not wearing this because I'm trying to look cool or none of that type of stuff. I'm at heart. I'm from New York at heart. You know what I'm saying? In my heart, it got a special place to me. So like when I throw my New York joint on, I'm serious. You know what I mean? So so I'm gonna say this. Years ago, before they had all these different books, they really didn't even have real good English translations of the Quran. They had a whole bunch of Qurans by like, generally, basically, if you got a Quran in the early 90s, it was a strong possibility that it was gonna be like Maulana Muhammad, some of these other peoples. Like these was, matter of fact, you almost can't even find them no more. So a lot of the Qurans that was in translations they was Ahmadiyyan Qurans. For anybody who familiar with the Ahmadiyyans. And if it wasn't Maulana Muhammad, he was an individual that was just like him. And Maulana Muhammad used to do small little books like how to study the Quran or interpret the Quran or whatever. And if you didn't know any better at first glance, they would be pretty decent. They would be pretty decent. He had some little fiqh type stuff, more Deobandi, Hanafi-ish. And like I say, I remember them. And then I reiterate, in Illinois, a lot of stuff, the Ahmadiyyans and the Tablighi Jamaat was really like some of the first people that came here and moved around. So the Tablighi Jamaat, usually Hanafi. The majority of them is Hanafi, Deobandi-ish, just depending on how extreme they is. So anyway, those is the type of little books that was in circulation. Like anybody who know back in the days where the Nation of Islam, when you would see Farrakhan, them, they would have these green Qurans with this gold on the front. And, if you didn't know, and, of course, this is also the War of Deen community. Those was Maulana Muhammad Qurans. And I used to have them. The first one I had was Maulana Muhammad. But anyway, my point is this. Years ago, before they had all these different books translated to English and you didn't have access to the internet where you can find all these different scholars and you could listen to them, and you have all these students who came back and started translating a lot of books from Arabic to English. So really all people really had was their English translation of the Quran. So people would be pretty well versed in the Quran. Some of the they misinterpreted a lot of stuff. Some of their understanding may have been their own understanding because there was no tafsirs, and generally it was being explained to you by whoever was around. And I'm gonna be honest, it was kind of done. Now I can't say as far as the East Coast, but the Midwest, the South, some of the West Coast, because I bumped into Muslims from those areas throughout my journeys. But it was kind of, Islam was almost kind of taught the same way Christianity was, where you get you some preacher, which we used to refer to as Bible thumpers, and they'll go get their verse from the Quran, from the Bible, and they'll preach on that verse, but sometimes they put their own spin on it. That's kind of like what was happening with the Quran. You didn't really have no people from overseas, whether they went to Africa, whether they went to Saudi Arabia or wherever. So that's just pretty much what it was. People read the Quran and just said what they felt. But they was at least well versed in it. You understand? So I will say, just speaking on some of the things as far as studying the way that's learning, right now, people don't know people not well versed in their Quran. They not. They are not well versed in the Quran like they used to be. People don't even really talk about the Quran. You know what I'm saying? So when I started to see hadiths being took out the hands of the people for all these small books, which nothing is wrong with them, they definitely beneficial books, but when it comes to tarbiyah, this deen is based off Quran and Sunnah, ijma, with dalil. But Quran and Sunnah technically, like, it's not being taught like that. Like, even like a lot of people who grew up as a Christian, they would have Bible studies, even if it was them interpreting the Bible however. And people would go in on Sundays or whatever day, and the kids they would probably have a kid Bible, and they would read the Bible or Bible stories. Like right now, even like some of us as adults, or we have children. How many of them actually have Quran classes at the masjid where they just going and reading the Quran to each other? Not even with the tafsirs or anything like that. What I've seen, if a masjid have a Quran class for kids, they going and just memorizing the short surahs in the back. You see what I'm saying? Regardless of what the tajweed is like or any of that, but their Quran classes doesn't really consist of people sitting reading the Quran and having a discussion about it, somebody busting out the tafsirs. Now, I will say over some of the last few years, I am starting to see people on YouTube, and some of them being a masjid, where they will do certain surahs, they will do certain tafsirs of certain surahs, which is needed, but they don't get a lot of views. They don't get a lot of views. But for real, people really just not that well versed in the Quran. So like right now, some new Muslim, you might go to the masjid and they, you got a Quran, yeah, you got a Quran, but they might be teaching Shah Sunnah, Imam Barbahari book, right? Something like that. And instead of them reading a Quran, just getting familiar with it, they reading a book by Imam Barbahari. Not saying that the books by Imam Barbahari shouldn't be read. I read it. I've read it a few times. I've read it once with a teacher and a few times on my own and with other students. But I've done read my Quran multiple times. Before I even read any side book, I had read the Quran 10 times. I had the little Maulana Muhammad book. So that's one thing that I will say that I didn't point out. the reading of the Quran, discussions of the Quran is being lost. Another thing that's being lost is, I just remember when you would ask Muslims a question, and when they answered it, it wasn't from theyself. So like right now, you could just ask Muslims something that's extremely simple, like something like, what's the fiqh of the shahada? Like this, something me and a few other students that I be studying with, when we talk, and some of them imams, right? So they try to get a feel for the community and get their finger on the pulse of the people. So we'll all ask like 5 or 10 people the same question to get their response. So let's say you ask, what's the fiqh of the shahada? Now, instead of somebody saying what you mean, what's the fiqh, or people feeling like they don't want to be wrong, they'll just answer it. No hadith dalil, no Quran dalil. The shahada to me means this. I feel like the fiqh of the shahada is this. And you will have all these different answers, but none of them really technically come from Islam. You see what I'm saying? So that's kind of being lost. Like a lot of stuff, when you ask people questions, they answer it. Instead of saying, I don't know, I'm not sure, I could look into it for you, or be like, you know what, I never really thought about that. You know what I'm saying? Alhamdulillah, that, I always applaud the people for at least trying to have an answer, and, just getting a pulse of seeing, where they deen is at. But some of them, the best of them, they'll go look for something. They'll go look for something and then bring that back. You know what I'm saying? So that's also starting to be like a major issue, from as opposed to like way back in the day. A lot of people, when they really answer stuff, just like with a lot of people with me, when it comes to me and they talk to me, people be like, every time when somebody asks you something, even when you answer right then on the spot, if like I don't have the proof around me, when I get home, I send them, or usually I have my phone, I text them exactly what I told them. So it really don't come from me. And that's something, man, the Muslims probably need to get back to working on. And if you have children, like with my daughter, even when she was young, I made sure she's read the Quran 2 times completely, while she was young. And then used to read it during Ramadan. But I made sure she read the Quran completely, did book reports, But some people don't have like a real Quran class where they just reading the Quran. We don't know it. Sometimes I get to talking about stuff in the Quran, man, and people just be like, it's like it's their first time ever hearing it. And let me pause it for 1 second. I want to get a tafsir before I move on with the next subject real quick. It's actually the tafsir I'm reading right now. 1 second. Okay, so tafsir is Ibn Kathir. This is volume 6. So this is really where I'm at in tafsir is Ibn Kathir, right? Volume 6, Surat al-Kahf. So I was reading this ayat. Beautiful. So ayat number 56 in Surat al-Kahf, right? And where it says, and we send not the messenger except as a bearer of good news and as warners. This all the messengers, not just the Rasul. So we send them with glad tidings, the teachings about Jannah, what's going to be good in this life, and then also as a warner about the shaitan, about the hellfire, about falling off deen, right? So as a Muslim, you should be able to find that balance when you're dealing with the people. You want to discuss the good news, the glad tidings, but you also want to be a warner. You see what I'm saying? You also want to be a warner. So, like it says, right? But Those who disbelieve argue with falsehood in order to refute the truth. So their argument be batil, falsehood, made up stuff, but they're using this as a means of arguing against the truth, right? And then it says, and they take my ayats. Allah saying they take my ayats and that which they are warned against for just some type of jest or some type of play. Like, they don't take it serious. So the things that they being warned against, they don't take it serious. And a little bit of the explanation of that, right, is where it's saying, when they try to refute, they argue with falsehood in order to refute the truth, right? That means they're trying to weaken the truth that the messenger brought. But they can't achieve that, right? And then it says, and they take my ayah and that which are warned for in jest, they take the proof and evidence and miracles sent with the messengers to warn them and make them fear the punishment as jest and a mockery. They make fun of them, which is in the worst type of disbelief. It's the worst type of disbelief. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning that, because right now you have people who try to argue the deen with stuff that's not in the deen. Like, you can bring Quran, Sunnah, Ijma, and they bring, this is what I was told. But it be batil, it be foolishness. And they will argue with it tooth and nail, and then they start to say certain things like, oh, well, that's these people. You know, basically they start to make comments, and I want to be careful because I do know some people that make comments, and I don't want them to feel like I'm talking about them personally because it's popping in my head as I'm talking. So I'm trying to be mindful of them, and I don't want them to feel attacked. But they start to make certain statements and don't realize that they're falling into mocking the religion. You know what I'm saying? Like, people be arguing with batil. And it was beautiful for me to come across that, because when you do stuff like this and you get messages and people, you know, be feeling some type of way, generally they arguing with stuff that they can't even prove. They can't even prove. And it be batil. It do. It just because you've been doing it since you was a kid, just because everybody you know does it or think this or was taught that, that's not the legal. Like, I'm gonna give an example or something. Not remove the scholars, but, and this is something that people don't do, because like right now, like I'm gonna give you an example. An individual told me recently that because of fiqh, hadiths ain't even really needed anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't even need hadiths no more. All you gotta do is pick a madhab and follow it. You understand? You don't even, hadiths not needed anymore. Also told me on the day of Yom Kippur, we not gonna be asked about no hadiths. We only gonna be asked about whether we followed the Quran or not. Not even realizing hadiths teach you how to follow the Quran. You see what I'm saying? These is arguing the truth with falsehood. And then you trying to weaken what the messenger came with. Just like what it says in tafsirs. Like, this is something I would tell any individual to do. We just gonna talk about one thing in Salat. In Salat, they have your positions. Pray like this, right? Pray with your hands below your belly button, your navel, like this, or with your hands on your side. I say, go to the books of hadiths and see which one of those, find all three of those positions in hadiths, right? and then see which one is authentic, see which one is Dalil. One of them might be like, I seen Ali do this. And then another person say, no, when I seen Ali pray, he was doing it like this. But it might not ever be the Rasul. I seen the Rasul do this. The Rasul said do this. And then some of it you might not find nowhere. But what you can find that's authentically reported, see, you have to understand, and I'm going to give y'all a little jewel when it comes to hadiths. Let's say, for instance, something with Salat. The Rasul had multiple wives. They all seen him pray. He had people who used to come over and spend a night at his home so that they could make tahajjud prayer with him. They all seen him pray. He used to get a Jumu'ah services, Jumu'ah cook bars on Friday. They all seen him pray. Right? So we just gonna say, on average, 15 people seen him pray all the time. The majority of the time, in the house and outside the house, 15 people seen him pray. And then all of a sudden, one person comes up and say, well, I seen the Rasul, when he got done praying, he took his hands and wiped his face and smeared it like this. So then you might see people who do this and start wiping their face. But they be the only person who ever seen that. The wives never seen it. Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, Bilal. Nobody ever seen it but this one individual. And see, these are some of the things that be hadiths that be strange. Gharib. How nobody else ever seen that? So like when it comes to the position, everybody seen him pray. Hadiths, he commanded us. The Rasul commanded us to pray a certain type of way. If you go and just look at the hadiths and see what's authentic, what's da'if, what's not even there. But due to people not wanting to dig into hadiths and they want everybody to do their deen and tell them what to do, you might not know what you're falling into. And then it may say, oh, well, all the scholars just agree that none of it technically invalidates the prayer because we want to agree to stop all the differing. You never know what ruling they came on that. But just go look for, or anything you doing salah, anything you doing wudu, go look for the hadiths on it. And then if you can't find them, because you could put yourself in a position where you arguing the truth with falsehood, just like with them Quran ayats, and then start to say stuff like, oh man, them hadiths is superstition. We don't need no hadiths because we got fiqh. This particular imam said this and imam said that. You know what I'm saying? And like I heard a scholar say, you have to have something seriously wrong with your Islam when there's authentic proof that the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this, commanded us to do this that way, and then you turn around and say, oh, well, this imam said this right here, so I'm gonna do that. Like even with some people, when it comes to the salat, you notice how certain people attach it to an imam. This is how Imam such and such said. This is what Imam Fulan and Fulan said. But did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say that? He prayed in all type of congregations. Nobody around him ever seen him do that. But if you start to notice what a lot of people is starting to fall into their deen, they're attaching it to an imam. Now, not to say some of the stuff that imams have not from Quran and Sunnah, I'm not saying that. But just look at that. A lot of people is starting to attach their stuff to a certain imam. And I'm not necessarily talking about the imams of the madhabs. It might be just somebody that they looked up to. And it might be falsehood. You know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to touch that tafsir. So let me speak on this thing with these pictures, man. And it's a touchy subject for some. So one of my homeboys, I'm only gonna discuss one conversation. So one of the good guys, man, before Islam, he got a little money, you know what I'm saying, on both sides of the spectrum, legal and illegal. So, he used to like to shine. So, he had what people used to refer to as the Jesus pieces. He even got some of those things that they refer to as an ankh. Some people feel like an ankh is the original cross, and then, he also, because he came from Christianity, so, he had some crosses, some of them with a dead body on them, which is bonkers, which we know that's not Isa, but some people have a cross with a dead body on it, and they walk around with it, which is bonkers. So anyway, he took pictures and stuff, he lived a life. So in his home, he got him a nice little crib, he Muslim, but he has some of the pictures hanging up from the dunya. And in some of those pictures, he got what people was referring to as the Jesus piece, Jesus head or whatever. He got, like I said, he got some of the ankhs on, gold, and then he got, a big cross with a dead body on it with diamonds and stuff on it. So anyway, he got some of the pictures up in his home. So another Muslim where he's at came and told him that you can't pray in his house. So another Muslim told him, set up another room and take one of your rooms, clear it out, and just set up a room specifically for prayer. Because he told him angels don't come in a room where there's pictures. Now, this is something where I fell into before too. Although I had read hadiths, sometimes when you see it translated, you can see where it says angels don't come in a room where there's pictures, and then angels don't come in a house where there's pictures. So I remember wherever I'm at, if I don't get a house for the purposes of making it the masjid, and then I just have a bedroom in the masjid or a building or something, when I have a regular house, I always get more bedrooms, and then that bedroom will be specifically for my prayers and all of that, right? Place of sajid. I'm going to refer to it as a masjid still, as opposed to a musalla. So I remember when I was into having all that decor, I had spent a lot of money on this real big picture with a real good hardwood frame. It was real expensive for some people making Hajj, walking around the Kaaba, right? So I would hang it in the hallway, but not, since I had a specific room for prayer, and to be honest, I didn't want to give it up because I spent like $80 for it, like 70, basically $80 I spent for that picture. So I didn't want to give it away, and I didn't want to throw it away. So I used to have it in my hallway. So it used to be particular Muslims who used to come over my house, right? And they would just always want to try to find something. So one brother was like, well, yeah, you got that picture in the hallway, this, that, and the third. So he was like, I was like, yeah, but right in here where I can close the door, I can close all the doors. This is blocked off. The angels don't enter a room. So he was like, oh, well, I always thought it was a house. So then I said to him, but I noticed you don't say nothing about the same picture was in the masjid. Now, which they had it outside of the room that you pray in. So due to me looking at a mistranslation, and I couldn't read Arabic at the time. But now, when this conversation happened, I can read the Arabic, but because they had that same picture in the masjid, but they didn't have it in the area where Jumar service and all that was. They made like it was permissible, but it was a Tabliki Hanafi masjid. So he was like, well, I was under the impression it was a house. What I did was I said, okay, alhamdulillah, I can read Arabic now. So I said, let's just bust the book of hadiths out and let me double check, because I'm not trying to be right in an argument. I want to let's look at it again, because I could have looked at something that was mistranslated. So when I went and looked at the Arabic, it did say house. Guess what I did immediately? I gave the picture away. So basically he fell into the one, because he read he looked on the internet and it did say room. So long story short, he talking to me about the pictures, and it was a serious hadith, and we had a conversation today, and I told him I'm gonna do a video, and I'm gonna touch this hadith to at least to give you another perspective of it, because he don't want to give them pictures up. He want them pictures hanging up in his house. He don't want to let go. And he from the old school, from like, back in the days, like people who went to their grandmother's house. A lot of us, man, from a certain generation, we was brought up on that, with family hanging, pictures hanging up all through the whole house, whole walls of pictures. Some of us. So he came from that. So he got all walls of pictures. And I will admit, before I started reading hadiths and starting to get serious in my deen, I had all that type of stuff, man. Especially, and I was still young when I had this. So I got pictures of me and 5-6 people all in the club throwing up gang signs and holding up, what was that stuff, man? I used to get it every year. And this was as a Muslim, Cristal, wallahi. I used to stay getting Cristal, so I got pictures hanging up with me with big bottles of Cristal and Dom Perignon. Not to speak on my sins, but I got this stuff hanging up on my wall. Whole wall full of pictures, my gang guys, families, sisters, and, just all type of foolishness. And I didn't want to give it up. I'm going to be honest. I didn't want to give it up. People who done passed away, but I knew Allah blessed me with something better. When you get that foolishness up, you're supposed to give it up anyway. So you have of course, scholars is going to differ. So some scholars say, if it's like basically out of necessity, like if you traveling, you go somewhere, you at somebody else, and you have to pray, and there's absolutely nowhere else to pray, because the pictures is up, the angels can't come in there, right? But it doesn't invalidate your prayer. So it doesn't say the pictures invalidate your prayer. Now, some scholars do feel like if you praying and you facing those pictures, especially if they dead people who done passed away, and people who was idolized in the family, and or certain people who have like like the Nation of Islam people, how they have like Fard Muhammad in their house. Sometimes people have like, they might love Bob Marley, so they got Bob Marley, Tupac, hanging up in their home, and you praying in front of these people that people idolized. Then some of them feel like some of that can kind of fall into some shirk. But this is just straight up necessity. So basically boiling down to valid and invalidating it. So it's like if you forced to and you absolutely have to do it, pray with your back towards those pictures, or find an area where there is no pictures. Like I say, you could be traveling, you could be at your mom's house. It may be a snowstorm outside. You can't go pray outside. You have absolutely no choice. So that's what they boil it down to, because it hasn't flat out said it invalidates your prayer. And then you have where some say it's 100% prohibited, and then some say that it's disliked. And they do have the dalil for both. but the live for both don't necessarily always meet the exact same circumstances when they use the thing where the Rasul said some stuff to Ali, where Ali said, when this come on, we disliked it. So he didn't necessarily say it was prohibited or haram, but this isn't always the exact same situation. So I'm just pointing out that it's seen two different ways. But it's definitely haram, prohibited to have your picture, having these pictures hanging up. So they start to discuss some of the dangers of having these pictures in the house, and I'm gonna touch this idea, and because what it can lead to, and I'm gonna be honest, I see this. Certain people may get down and out, and they may have a picture of their mom hanging up, or a picture of their parents, or like they may have been closer to their grandmother. And let's say they in a situation where they starting to get real sad. They might look at the picture and say stuff like, I'm so lost, I don't know what to do. I really need you right now. I see people get on Facebook and like post a picture of their parents and say stuff like that. I need you right now. If you were still alive, my life would be different. They make posts like that, but sometimes people be in their house and they look at a picture of one of their parents or their grandparents, or one of their kids, who may have lost their kid, and then start talking to the picture. Some may even touch the picture, because my family, no knock to my family, but shirk is their thing. Shirk is their thing. I'll say my relatives. But shirk is their thing, man. And you might see one of them touch a picture and be like, I miss you. I really wish you was here because life would be different. See, when you start to make comments like that, now you falling into something different. Because one, the qadr is from Allah, not from this individual who done passed away. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I really need you now. Like they could fix the situation you're going to. They couldn't even fix that situation if they was alive. But now you talking to these pictures. Oh, I really need you right now. I don't know what to do. No, you need Allah Azza wa Jal. You know what I'm saying? So they talk about how people fall into those certain type of things, and then they also say it causes reoccurring grief. You could be having a good mood. You could be in a good mood. You could be having a good day, and then you might walk past and see one of them pictures and automatically get sad. And then you might fall into that stuff, or you might get to talking to them about problems. Kiki and them keep fighting and going to jail. If only you was here. And some of that stuff, like I say, some of that stuff, you falling into shirk. Because you feel like they could fix something that only Allah could fix. You know what I'm saying? Falling into, and like I say, man, no knock to them. Because, and this is something I see from Muslims that I know personally. Looking at them, something good, like they may get the good job, and they go look into that picture and say stuff like, I knew you was watching over me. Like they was a guardian angel. Like, this is associating a partner with Allah. You giving them credit for something Allah did. You talking about you need them right now. If they was alive, you wouldn't be going through this and all this. Nah, man, you need Allah Azza wa Jal. So they some of the scholars even discuss some of the dangers of having it. Right? So like, for my partner who don't want to get him pictures up because he's shining, right? The hadith, when you go to the Arabic and the stuff, that from all the ones I'm familiar with, that's authentic, they say house. The angels don't enter the house, period, right? That's enough for me. That should be enough for you as well. Secondly, like it say, where the mercy and the sakina that the angels bring down when you make salat, how can they bring it down to you into your home? Although your prayer It ain't invalidating your prayer, but you want to receive khushu. You want certain things to go. You want to be tranquil in your prayer. Shaitan steady playing with you in your salat because the angel's not in there. How is that going to happen, man? The angels can't even come in your home. But, and I'm going to show something, and wallahi, I'm finna take it outside and throw it away. So somebody had picked up some stuff. I had some like electronics in the box, and they put this in the box and brought it to my home. You know, when I was younger, and I used to be on the gymnastic team, right? And this one of the trophies I won. And before I throw it away, I go ahead and stun on one of my homies, man, who was on the team with us, and we was at this meet, and they didn't get no trophy. They didn't place. Let me stun on them one time. You know what I'm saying? But let me be humble. I'm just joking out. But this right here, this is a statue. I don't keep this in my home like this. I'm bringing it in to show for all the people who worried about pictures. Some of y'all got y'all basketball trophy, Gus Macker stuff, and all of that, and different little statues, little knickknacks, little African people, statues of elephants and tigers and all these other little decors. These are the same thing. Stuffed animals all on your bed, gorillas, cute pink bears. These are some of the same things. You know, some of your kids got certain type of toys that's not permissible. Toys of Dracula and demonic type figures and evil cartoon characters. This is the same thing. Now, one of the scholars, because he was asked about kids having backpacks and lunch boxes with like certain type of characters that's just completely made up and was never human, that didn't have a soul, like a transformer or whatever these new things that, you know, because a transformer is like a car or a truck that just had eyes and stuff. So he said the ruling kind of different because these things apply to things that was something that had a soul or something that could have a soul. Like although this is an image of an actual person. You know what I'm saying? Angels can't come in my house while this is here. So this is something that could have a soul. And while I'm touching that a little bit, this is something I want to explain to some people, because some people take all these pictures and then they'll put white over the eyes. You need to dig into where that come from. You know what I'm saying? Now look, first and foremost, because I want to say this. There's an old saying where people, like when you're in New York and different areas, they want you to look them in the eyes. Then there's certain areas, you know, people don't want you looking them dead in their eyes. But there's an old saying that the eyes is the windows to the soul. So some people don't know the origins of it and may have heard other people say this and that. But the reason why they started scratching the eyes out or covering the eyes off, because keep in mind, these pictures and different things involve something that had a soul. So they started scratching the eyes and covering the eyes out. Like that's going to protect it. The picture don't have no soul, B. You know what I'm saying? It isn't about the eyes of the picture. The picture is still an image. And then some people who have difficulties with like accepting that it's a picture that could be taken with a camera. Oh no, it had to be Drew, it had to be this, that, and the third. When you look at a picture of yourself, is you not seeing the image of you? When you look at a picture of somebody else, is you not seeing the image of that person? Because, so like, yeah, some of the dangers of it, the reason why it's a major sin, because that picture, one of the proof that the picture where they scratching the eyes out because they trying to block the window to the soul, one thing to let you know that picture don't have no soul in it. So that's not making the picture better or permissible. One of the things with it, the people who make these images, who draw these pictures, who deal with this type of stuff, Allah Azza wa Jal is going to tell them to beat that. They're going to beat them until they can put a soul in it. Right? The image makers, the picture makers, the ones who drawing this and that, Allah Azza wa Jal is going to beat them and tell them to put a soul in it. There's no soul in that picture. So thinking you doing something better because you put white across the eyes, like you covering the window to the soul. But like I say, some people don't know why they doing it. They was just told to do it. They don't know no ruling on it, this and that. But that doesn't save it. It's still an image. So like certain pictures for identification, to identify yourself permissible, because you need driver's license, you need IDs, you need work IDs. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes with social media, right? And this is your website. You can have a picture of yourself to promote your social media. Like in this day and time, sometimes with marriages, like a situation where I'm going through right now. A particular mutual friend that I have hit me up. I know a sister, this, that, and the third. I think that they'll be good for you and all this, that. And I'm going to admit, I love to go through the Wakil process. I do. I love to go through the Wakil process because being a Wakil myself, just seeing how shady some of these Wakils is, it's hilarious. So, they hit me up. Now, we haven't said a word to each other. It's a mutual in-between. And then this other one got a Wakil. But for some purposes, and we can't get on a FaceTime, this, that, and the third, okay, cool. I'm going to take a quick picture so that they can see what's to me. And then they take a quick picture so that I can see what's to them. It ain't nothing that I keep. It ain't nothing that they going to keep. But it's a process of identifying who we are and what we look like. And then we can start, okay, cool. All right, let's holler at your Wakil. Let's move forward. So certain things like this is different, but just taking a whole bunch of pictures for people to see and, look at me, I'm living it up, you're falling into something. So, let me throw this outside. Now, I'm finna throw it in the trash, but I'm just gonna throw it outside of my house real quick because I know the angels can't be in here. So, like, all this, them trophies, it ain't just pictures hanging up in your house. And like I say, with the pictures that I had or threw away, they in a box, they in a garage that the family own. And, because like I do have some family that's into pictures and photo albums. So, some of the stuff I wanted to throw away, they wanted to get, they get some of that stuff and they keep it. That's their thing. They not Muslim. Hey, it's garbage to me. You know what I'm saying? A lot of them pictures it shouldn't be anyway. And when I show you this hadith, y'all probably look at some of it different. Let me throw this out of my house real quick, and then I'll go pick it up and throw it in the garbage. Hold on. So let me close on this hadith. I'm going to read a couple of hadiths. So look at this right here. So this one is in Bukhari. I'm gonna use my phone so I don't have to go through too many books. So it says when Allah's messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this narrated by Ibn Abbas, when he came to Mecca, he refused to enter the Kaaba because idols was in it, right? So he ordered that the idols be taken out. So they were taken out, and inside the Kaaba was a picture of Prophet Ibrahim and Ishmael. But they was holding aslams in their hands. And Allah's messenger said, what's wrong with these people? What's wrong with these people? May Allah curse these people. And then he says, Wallahi, Abraham and Ishmael never did the game of chance with aslams. So I want to explain what aslams is while we on it, right? Aslams, like right now, they not popular now, but it was a time when they had these 8 balls. And you would ask the 8 ball a question and then you would shake it. And then whatever the answer popped up, or it would be this thing which you put on your fingers with a bunch of answers inside, and you do your fingers like this, and it'll be opening and closing, and then it'll pick it, and then when somebody pick one or two or whatever, and then they'll pick it, and whatever the answer was, they went with it. These was kind of like what the Aslan was. So I pulled up some definition for it, right? So they called them divinations with arrows, and they was like born arrows. With the born arrows, they will write like okay, like y'all probably seen it before with people on the cartoons or different movies. It used to be back in the day, but they would take a flower and be like, they love me not. They love me not. And then whatever they ended up with, the last one they picked was what they went with. That's kind of what it was. So they would write different decisions on the arrow. And then they would shoot the arrows, or they would throw the arrows all at the same time or at separate times. And whichever one went the furthest, that's how they made their decision. So it was shirk. It wasn't Allah. These was forms of shirk, games of chance. They also and then they would have one of the arrows with nothing on them, and then sometimes they would put them in like we just gonna say a bowl or something big enough to hold the arrows, and then they would twirl them and shuffle them around like this, like how you do cards, mix them all up, and then close their eyes and pull one out. And whatever they had written on the arrow, that's how they made their decision. Should I, instead of Istakara, okay, should I marry her on one arrow? No. On another arrow, yes. On another arrow, I want to hate her to death. I'm going to hate her for life. And then they mix them up like this and then close their eyes and pull out an arrow. And whichever one they said, that's the decision they went with. So this was shirk. And they had Prophet Abraham, alayhi salam, and Ismail, alayhi salam, with pictures of them indulging in shirk. So when Rasulullah says, man, what's wrong with them? Right? They also had a picture of Maryam. You know what I'm saying? Prophet Isa mother. It was also a picture of her in there. So, Rasul was just like, man, what's wrong with these people? Why they got a picture of them practicing this shirk, these Aslams? So why I mention this hadith? Because at least for one, and the Rasul had them removed, he had them destroyed. If you got pictures and you got on a cross with a dead body on it, that's shirk. You got what you consider to be the head of Jesus, Isa alayhi salam, around your neck in pictures. That's shirk. So just like with them drawing and had these pictures of Prophet Ibrahim and Ismail indulging in shirk on some pictures, why would you want pictures hanging up in your house with you indulging in shirk? Or other family members, parents, pictures of them with crosses on, because a lot of, just think about that aspect of it. People with shirts with deviant, people that Allah clearly wasn't pleased with. Like for instance, some people right now, like what P. Diddy going through. It might be somebody who went to the club with a picture of Puffy and Biggie on it, right? And they went to the club back in the day. They got this shirt with Puffy and Biggie on it, or maybe all of them, the Junior Mafia and all that, Puffy, Biggie, and all them. And now this picture is hanging up in your house. You like this with a big Puff Daddy shirt on it. You know what I'm saying? Somebody who Allah Azza wa Jal clearly isn't pleased with. Clearly. Not just because what he going through. You know what I'm saying? Even when he was on the top of his game. This is somebody Allah Azza wa Jal clearly ain't pleased with. Why would you want something like that hanging up on your house? And like this hadith, like I say, my relatives, they heavily into shirk. And, sometimes when I go, the only relative I have whose house I go to is my mom. You know what I'm saying? I go see my parents, and they just got a plethora of, because they keep obituaries, and like I say, like some people, even some Muslims, they have all these obituaries and people on the front of the obituary with what they think is angel wings, and they may have them setting up on a mantle or a bookshelf or a fireplace. All these obituaries and stuff, man, with people with crosses. You got pictures of people up involved in shirk, or like how I said, some of the pictures I had, we pictures of me sitting up at the table with big bottles of Cristal and Dom Perignon, and what I'm saying, pictures of we at parties, we playing cards, and big bong all on the table and different stuff like that, man. Like, why you want all that hanging up on your wall anyway, man? You involved in stuff that Allah Azza wa Jal wasn't pleased with. And this is a reminder of that, man. And then like I say, man, falling into some type of things. And I can honestly say, I looked at a couple of pictures. I didn't fall into the aspect of like, oh, I really need you here. If you was here, my life. But I done looked at a couple of pictures, man, that was on my wall of some people who passed away and be like, dang, I might talk to them a little bit like, man, if you, I hate that happened to you, you know what I'm saying? Like, even sometimes, when you sit down and say, if certain people was around, or if I was around, they wouldn't have did that to you, and just different stuff, man. And that's, people need to be careful of that. Looking at them pictures and you like, it's your birthday, happy birthday. Like I said, I know Muslims who do that. Such and such, I know you a happy birthday, such and such, and I'm screaming all the way to heaven, happy birthday. I know you watching over me. You my guardian angel. Even on Facebook, putting up pictures of their parents. You my guardian angel. Happy birthday to you. Like, saying that's your guardian angel and all that stuff, man. Some of this stuff is shirk, man. Allah Azza wa Jal is your guardian. Allah watches over you, not somebody who passed away. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's some of the things you can fall into with them pictures. And so just looking at that, man, the way the Rasul seen, like he said, man, what's wrong with these people? And like I say, sometimes when I walk in people's house, and me being familiar with this hadith, and I just look at that and see all these pictures of people involved in shirk. Obituaries where they making people angels and putting them in the sky, or they got halos around them. Big crosses all on the obituaries and all that type of stuff, man. And that's this stuff in this hadith. I just don't wish the curse of Allah upon them. You know what I'm saying? But I do be like, man, what's wrong with these people, man? Man, Allah Azza wa Jal guide them to what's correct. I still feel that way, man. Allah guide them to what's correct. So let me close on the hadith, man. And one little thing here, because I talk to Muslims, so it be certain Muslims be like, me and my husband, we be following this. We do this from the Sunnah, we do this from the Quran, and it just seems like it's not happening for us. And then I say, I had to tell them, and I'm going to be honest with you. Sometimes, man, when you look at the lives of the companion and the Rasul and them, and the way they made du'as and the way they was being answered, and their marriages was reconciling, they wasn't living like a major life of sin. They was eating halal, they was living clean, they was praying all 5 salats in masjids, praying sunnah prayers at home, praying duha, praying, making 2 rakats of tawbah. They was praying night prayers. They wasn't sitting around listening to some of the most dreadful music that you could think of, music bumping in their house about killing and sex and getting high, doing a plethora of different drugs. They wasn't all in a club drinking, smoking weed, and drinking all in the house and smoking vapes and Black and Milds and you know, you know what I'm saying? All type of stuff, man. They wasn't living like that. You know, they wasn't sitting around a bunch of friends in their house, you know, talking about what sex like this person was like and what they private parts is like, and they wasn't living like how we live. You know what I'm saying? They wasn't sitting up with a bunch of pictures of passed away people involved in shirk all spread out through their house. You know, it was just a, you know, they was living like they was living where they was in good standards with Allah. You know what I'm saying? We can't adjust because we was raised wrong, which is being raised right according to this kafir demonic society that we live in. But according to Islam, we was raised horrible. And because these things was okay, we still don't see nothing wrong with it. See, one thing you have to understand, even as a Christian, those who was a Christian, who really knew a bad Christian? You could do anything under the sun. You wasn't a bad Christian. Even if you didn't go to church, even if you didn't read the Bible, you wasn't a bad Christian. And then we come to Islam and really pretty much be the same way for the most part. Makes a lot sometimes, but you know, we don't think nothing is wrong with any of that because that's where we come from. And then some of those things that okay in society, we don't want to give it up as a Muslim because we was taught this is the thing to do. We done seen generations and generations of people doing it. But just like the Quran say, you know, you got to look at some of that stuff and be like, you know, this is what our forefathers was doing. I seen my grandma's house like this. My great grandma had all these pictures. We come from a long line of people who did that. But like the Quran say, you know, you falling up behind them, but they didn't have no knowledge. they didn't know that they was on shirk. They didn't know what they was into. But we so raised on all this, these birthdays and all this stuff that we just can't give up. Because we it's nothing wrong with it to us. What's wrong with buying some candy for Valentine's and Easter chocolates? We can't give it up. We can't give it up. So let me close on a hadith, which is being disputed with me, right? Some people just can't accept that this is referring to Muslims. And this is what you need to be careful with, man, because all of us Muslims want to warn. We got to be some warners, right? So this one right here, I'm going to use Sunan Ibn Majah because of the taqrees, right? So it was narrated from Hudayfa bin Yamin that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, there will be callers at the gate of hell. Whoever responds to them, they will throw them into it. So people are going to be standing at the gates of the hellfire and they're going to be calling you to the hellfire. Not like literally in the hellfire. Basically, Muslims going to be calling you to wrongdoing that leads to the hellfire in this life. And if you answer that call, if you respond to it, that same person going to throw you into the hellfire. Now listen to this. Right? Whoever responds to them, they will throw them in it. I said, oh Messenger of Allah, describe them to us. Who is these people that's going to be calling people to the hellfire? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, they will be from our people. They gonna be part of us. They gonna speak our language. Not just necessarily saying they're gonna just be Arabs. That's not what it's saying. They're gonna be Muslims. Right? I said, what do you command me to do if I live to see that? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, adhere to the main body of Muslims and their leader. If there is no such body and there is no leader, then withdraw from all their groups. Even if you have to go somewhere and bite on the trunk of a tree until death finds you in that state. Basically use the root of the tree to eat and get water out of. If that's all you have left to survive on, this Allah. So when it says stick to the main body of Muslims, letting you know, stick to the Muslims that's not like that. And if you can't find them where they not like that, go get away from everybody. Even if you had to go live off in the woods, the forest, the mountains, and live off the root of trees. That's how severe that is. You know why it's that severe? Because if you answer they call, you going to the hellfire. Now some people still don't want to accept that this is referring to Muslims. So when you look at the Taqreej, it says after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was no period free from those who called towards falsehood, batil, and the common people have been responding to their call, being impressed by their powerful eloquence. How many Muslims done fell into this came from that Imam and it didn't? Took them off the Sunnah. How many people done fell into the ways of the Shiites, the ways of the Tablighi Jamaats, the ways of this deviant group, the ways of those deviant groups, making up lies and putting limitations on Allah. Imagine saying out of your mouth what Allah can't do. You sitting up saying, time for Qiyam Leo, sitting up saying some stuff like, it's things that you can do, but Allah can't do them because you can do them. Imagine how many people done fell into putting limitations on Allah. Imagine how many individuals choosing what another person said that they consider to be an imam over Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? And then it said the sects such as the Khawarij, the Mu'tazila, the Shia, the Jahmiyyah, and etc. emerged during the period of the companions of the Prophet and their followers, the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and may Allah be pleased with all of them, and their followers refuted their claims and clarified their doubt. Right? During the disagreement, the correct method was the one that was adopted by the companions of the Prophet. May Allah be pleased with them all and their followers. The manner of the practice of the companions of the Prophet, may Allah be pleased with them, and their followers are to be followed in the disagreements that occur between them. Basically, it's referring to stick to Quran and Sunnah and Ijma. So even with all those orders, even in the Quran where it tells us to stick to that, to what Allah sent down from the book and the hikmah. You know what I'm saying? Obey the Rasul Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then we don't obey him. Rasul Allah command us, do this when you pray. Do this when you pray. Rasul did this many times. Rasul did that, and you sit down and say, no, I ain't gonna obey Allah's messenger in that, cause that my imam didn't do that. But you don't feel like you going against Quran and Sunnah? Mess around, you know, cause like some of us, we just don't know how to look into certain things, man. And now that proof is just disappearing, people will say anything with no fear. Man, I'm scared to say this because Allah might hear me. But it's time for Qiyam Leo. And this hadith is Sahih. It's some more Taqreej, but you know, it's getting late. And there's other hadiths concerning this. But be mindful of that. A day is going to come where people from amongst us that say the things we say, Assalamu alaikum, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, they speak what we speak. But they gonna be calling people to the hellfire, baby. They gonna be calling people to the hellfire, Yanni. And whoever answers, they gonna throw you in it. They gonna throw you in it. You know what I'm saying? So, assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Any mistakes I've made came from myself and the shaitan. Anything I said that was correct came from Allah Azza wa Jalla Muqtadir.